while we do offer marketplace agents, we are opening the doors to have customers create their own agents by bringing their own LLMs and integrating with any MCP server they might have in their ecosystem. They could just go and create their own agents and automate their work.
And I think the best way to think about them is not another AI chatbot bolted onto your pipeline. It's AI that runs inside your governance that you already trust.
All right. Welcome to a special episode of DevSecOps. You'll notice that we have two additional guests here making it a special episode. We're joined here today by Rudy and Kalyan from Harness, and I'll just have them do a quick round of introduction here for us.
Yeah, sure. No, thanks so much, Akash and Tim, for having us. My name is Rudy Sieber. I'm a principal solutions engineer along with my colleague Kalyan here at Harness, supporting our federal practice. So really excited to be here and just talk all things federal and what's happening in the world of DevSecOps. Kalyan?
Hey, thanks, Tim and Akash, for having us here. My name is Kalyan Venkata. As Rudy said, I'm another principal solution engineer from Harness. I'm really excited to be here and share some of our thoughts around how DevOps and DevSecOps is actually trending with AI innovation.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining, too. And I know I've been teeing you guys up to come on here, so I appreciate you jumping on and showing us some of the stuff. So we've, just to kind of, for the audience, right, we've been working with Harness for quite some time now and just really been using their overall CI/CD tooling and just their app, just expanding and expanding on it. So, yeah, I don't want to keep adding anything in there. I got my Harness shirt on today to support, so I'm excited to learn about some agents here. So I'll turn it over to you guys and we can dive in.
While both Kalyan and I support the entire federal practice, just today we're a little bit separated out in like what we're hearing from Department of War, myself focusing on that, and Kalyan's supporting civilian side on our federal practice. So just wanted to share some of the learnings, especially as we just got back from AWS Public Sector. It was really great event, and we had lots of conversations with those hardworking civil servants and dedicated service members who were coming out. And a big topic, at least for me, on my side of the conversations was really about security and compliance and what we can do to help normalize risk assessments across the federal space. Especially a lot of the challenges that we're seeing today is some of those. Specifically, you can't really mandate all the different tools that everybody's using. So how do we get to a state where we can provide COs, commanding officers, or whoever is making that final risk decision with the best amount of information for those mission systems that are going out there? And how do we ensure that, we have capabilities to both secure and protect our warfighters, especially from like zero-day vulnerabilities and other areas? So really excited. We can dive a little bit more into that as well. But Kalyan, I'd love to pass it to you as well, just to see what you've been hearing on the civilian space, how much there's overlap.
We constantly hear from a lot of our civilian customers asking how they can allow the regular stakeholders also to contribute towards the application deployments. Like one of our customers recently said, like, I have in the healthcare especially, they came to us asking us how can they allow the broader ecosystem, like doctors or the other practitioners who are interested to wipe code their own applications and deploy them and manage them within their own civilian ecosystems. So there has been, earlier we used to talk about having a finite set of developers, but the definition of developers have changed now. Anybody could wipe code an application and they wanted to deploy, but they want to deploy all that in a secured, compliant ecosystem. And a lot of times we get these questions around how could they make this possible? So there had been definitely a lot of interest in how AI and agentic AI could help them securely and with all the compliance and guardrails, deliver these applications in their civilian ecosystem.
I'll be happy to kick us off, and then I'll pass it over to Kalyan as well. So as Kalyan and I mentioned, civil servants and, our warfighters, they both need speed, but really neither of them can afford that speed without evidence, right? So, and that's exactly the gap that the Harness worker agents were built to close. So we announced this actually just this Tuesday, just at least at the time of this recording was 2 days ago. And I think the best way to think about them is not another AI chatbot bolted onto your pipeline. It's AI that runs inside your governance that you already trust. So if we're looking at that specifically, AI is writing more of the code now. So the work between writing that code and safely getting that into production building, testing, scanning, deploying, remediating. That's where the time and the risk still live. So the worker agents handle that middle ground. And that's the thing that makes them different from just like a generic AI tool, is that every agent is going to run a governed pipeline step on your own infrastructure under the policies and audit trail. So with that, I'll go ahead and I'll share our screen here from this perspective so we can kind of show the worker agents. And Kalyan, please feel free to jump in and provide an overview as well, and I can show them the code review and the worker agents coverage if you'd like.
Absolutely, yeah. So the idea behind the harnesses worker agents is to give an autonomous capabilities. Like as Rudy was saying, there has been a lot of innovation because of AI. A lot of code is being delivered with AI, but at the same time, there are so many mundane tasks or repetitive workflows that the agency would have to go through as far as delivering the code is concerned. From building the code, it's not just about building and deploying the code. There are steps of identifying any kind of vulnerabilities, especially with AI generating a lot of code. We do not know what kind of third-party dependencies are being accepted into the organization's environment, which would in turn cause a lot of disruption or exploitation of the systems. So it's important to scan the code for vulnerabilities and be more proactive and shift left in the security, so that all that could be identified well in advance in the earliest stage of SDLC before even the code gets deployed into any environment. Not just keeping production into the as an end goal. We should think about having any of this addressed even before it gets deployed into QA environment, so that we deliver a more secure and quality code so that we can have the QAs spend time only on testing the business functions rather than working on some of the tasks, the tasks such as looking for security vulnerabilities or repetitively getting the code through fixes for those security vulnerabilities. So a lot of that could also be handled as an autonomous process. That's where the idea of this worker agents would come into the play, where the process where as the vulnerabilities are being identified, you would want to close the feedback loop by using the ticketing systems like Jira, ServiceNow, and in turn also providing remediation steps for the developers to quickly remediate those vulnerabilities and push those code fixes so that the loop can be handled more efficiently and effectively, can all be accomplished using this autonomous agent. So that's the goal. As the vulnerabilities is only one part of it, there are many other tasks that could be automated throughout the SDLC process, and there are many worker agents that you can think of as you wanted to go ahead and automate a lot of your repetitive boilerplate or mundane tasks. So that's the idea behind the worker agents. So Harness came out with a lot of pre-notioned marketplace worker agents that could be added into your pipelines. They could also be autonomously run outside the pipelines by having them triggered based off of an activity or a ticket or a change to a particular ticket. Like a lot of triggers could be added that would trigger these agents, and these agents in turn would help you automate a lot of those tasks. Like as you see, there are code reviewing agents, the infrastructure remediation agents are the agents that would automatically manage your feature flags, and if there are any obsolete ones that could be retired. Like a lot of these tasks are done pretty manually today. While they're documented and somebody is responsible for doing it, because of the increase in the amount of the code being delivered, these things are getting to the are being pushed to the end of the priority list, and they may or may not even get to be handled. So a lot of that could be easily addressed through these worker agents.
Cool.
So are these more like it's like kind of pre-built skills that you guys have done? Like what would you describe this as? Like if we dove into one of these and I know they're, you're going to kick these off through the pipeline in the sense, but for example, the code review, would you kind of put that right into your pipeline, and that's how that's going to trigger? Or yeah, I guess going back to my first question, are these really just just well built out skills that you guys provide, or is this something completely different and I'm missing the point?
The basic idea behind the worker agents is the autonomous units of work that could predominantly execute tasks. As part of SDLC, there is so much cognitive load that every stakeholder would have to go through. There are so many integrations involved, from integrating with your Git repositories to the scanner platforms to a lot of ticketing systems. The goal is to use these agents and leverage the LLM providers and the MCP servers to be able to integrate with all these various systems throughout the process and deliver those tasks. Now, these could be delivered either with the skills that you already have as part of your LLM providers, or you could also create the deterministic prompts as part of configuring the worker agents that would allow you to deliver those tasks when the agent gets executed.
Okay.
Cool. And who would you say this is like primarily for? Like DevOps engineers, platform engineers, maybe some program managers, or all of the above kind of thing? Or
that's a good question. That's a good question, actually, and I would say it's all of the above, because as I said, there are so many processes involved in taking a piece of code into production. And each of this process involves multiple stakeholders, right? When you're talking about security vulnerabilities, you predominantly talk about developers and security teams. But at the same time, when you talk about checking whether a particular process is compliant or not, you will also include your auditors and security teams and architects so that they review the evidences. So I would say all of the above, depending on the stage you are at, depending on the purpose of the agent. Anyone would be a stakeholder for this agent.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could see even, to the higher level of like leadership and corporate, right? Because again, I know some of your back end product, or how that works. So, as a corporation, I could say, hey, put an OPA, because again, you guys have this all driven through pipelines. I could enforce that anything that comes through here must have that agent, right? So like from a entire platform perspective, I'm enforcing this versus, hey, a developer could pick this, or a platform engineer, if they want to do some infrastructure as code, they'll throw that in there. Well, I can make them throw this in there too, right?
Yeah.
You're probably going to talk a little bit about that, but and again, knowing the product a little bit more and what we can enforce.
Yeah, and this all could be enforced and executed with the existing platforms are back. Like, it's a lot of the in many cases, the biggest question we come across is the security of executing these agents itself, because it has access to a lot of the systems of truth behind the scenes. And as it's integrating with all those systems, there is always a constant concern around whether the right folks who are executing them has the right amount of access. So every time you access an agent or execute an agent as part of a pipeline, it always looks into the user who has been logged in, or the context who's at which these agents are being running across, which would become the foundation. In turn, it will leverage the existing RBAC controls to determine who is requesting for accessing this agent or executing this agent in the pipeline, which then will make an appropriate determination on what data to pull and how much data that it can surface as part of the pipeline itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool.
I see on the screen here we have the LLM connector. Is that so? I'm assuming would that be so? We have Akash. We do leverage light LLM, correct?
Yes.
To do our
Yep.
Gatekeeper in the sense, right? Would we be able to point that to ours, or is that something that's coming soon? Is that, I guess, what would your connector side of things like? Is that additional stuff we could configure to be specific to our environment?
So as of today, just as we just launched 2 days ago, right now we're
Sure. Yeah.
Anthropic and OpenAI, but absolutely, for anybody who does know Harness on listening to this podcast, we always want to meet our developers, our customers where they are. So we're adding more and more functionality with this. Same with like our MCP server, which again supports any model that has an MCP protocol. Same with the LLMs. We're going to be adding more and more of that support as we keep rolling this out.
Okay, awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as more and more code is being delivered using AI, we are expecting a lot of stakeholders to be creative in automating a lot of the day-to-day work, a lot of the boilerplate work they're working with every day, like from generating any kind of reports after a particular pipeline is being executed. There are like a lot of automated evidence gathering that happens for the compliance teams or auditing teams, from automatically creating the tickets for vulnerabilities. That's the biggest task security teams do today, where if the pipeline has been created to generate an artifact and deploy the artifact over a period of time, the historical vulnerabilities to the new ones will change as the code evolves. So it becomes a repetitive task for them to identify what are the new vulnerabilities that got created for a particular artifact. And they spend really some time to identify those new vulnerabilities that's been introduced and go and create the tickets. A lot of that could be completely automated using this worker agents, so that we give them the time back to the stakeholders that they can effectively put on some truly productive work, delivering business outcomes for their customers, right? So that's the goal here. The goal is not to say that this is going to reduce the workforce or it's going to replace humans. The goal is to say is to actually make all the stakeholders who are part of the SDLC much more effective and be more productive in delivering their work, and also deliver a quality work as they're contributing to the SDLC in their organization.
Yep. I see the other benefit of this too, like an implicit one, is the whole shift left kind of mentality with security.
Yeah.
So the fact that you run this in a pipeline makes it more of a preventative kind of measure for vulnerabilities rather than a reactive one when it's already live in production. So yeah.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Yes, absolutely. It's not just the vulnerabilities. It's also about the use case, just code review,
Right,
or
exactly.
the quality of the code that's being delivered, where you wanted to ensure did every piece of code the developer created has properly been tested or not? Are there subsequent amount of unit testing, functional integration testing being executed in the early stage of SDLC? So when you're delivering the code to your QAs or to your user testing scenarios, they get the code with that they can really be confident on actually executing their functional cases or end-to-end test cases, versus seeing a 404 as soon as the code gets delivered in QA. The first thing most of the times they see is a 404 because something broke and some unit testing was not properly conducted, which would impact a web application or an application that gets delivered to QA. And it takes at least based on my experience in the past, it takes approximately 3 to 6 days for a new application that gets delivered to QA environment to get stabilized. That's the time your QA is not actually working. Rather, your developers are trying to figure out what really broke the environment and going back and trying to fix the code. All that, I would say, can be potentially saved, and a much more quality application could be delivered to the higher environments using this shift left approach.
Yeah, and to add to just Kalyan's point here, and just like kind of perfect tee up here is what he described. So this is the code coverage agent, and this is one of the ones that comes out of the box with the marketplace. So it's built exactly to answer the questions that Kalyan was putting in here, like every piece of code actually been tested automatically before it even gets to the QA environment. So in this one, as you can see, there's what it's doing. It's got the LLM connector, and then it's got all of the instructions. So when we actually execute this in a pipeline scenario, and for those who haven't seen like Harness before, we've got like both the console view. The code review agent is running through like generating agent instructions, PR, post review results, and in the post review results.
So is that? Did you guys build that group, or is that part of? I'm just curious.
That's part of that. That's part of the agent. It's just the agent itself, and if you look at the pipeline here. It's just running the code coverage agent, and then the execution of that opens up because based on the instructions that are in the agent itself. We actually had recently we had a customer hackathon for our existing customers that wanted to utilize the agents before we went GA with them this 2 days ago. And this was about a couple weeks back, and it's just some of the quotes. I can't attribute them to specific customers, but some of the quotes from them were things of like, we thought this would take weeks to set up, and they were able to do this in hours. Like creating a custom worker agent on your own is just as easy as setting up the instruction within the Harness platform. And we don't necessarily want to make this a demo on this podcast. We just kind of wanted to talk about how this applies to overall the federal space and what's there. So what matters most is really for all of our federal customers is the trust question, right? So we want to make sure the shift left and look what it's being told to do. Like it's generating the agent instructions, printing the plug outputs, post review results. So in this case, there's a link that just clicks in here, and it's actually committed all of the new tests from here. So it caught all the coverage gap before the code ships, and then by design, it actually committed all of those new tests that it required needing before it gets to QA. So I don't know, Kalyan, if you want to add anything to that, but
yeah, I mean, this is a great example where we are not telling that this is going to make anyone lazy. Of course, like somebody might say, hey, I'm not going to write any tests. The code review agent anyhow is going to review my code and it's going to generate all the tests for me. So that's not the intent here because the goal is to still have the developers write all the tests where with OPA, with the open policy agent as a governance layer, all the right policy gates should be there to ensure there is right amount of code coverage even before code gets built. But at the same time, there are always gaps in terms of how much unit testing you can create. This is something that we usually come across, like how much ever code we are writing. As we write the code, especially these days with a lot of AI, with a lot of code being generated by AI, there is always a challenge in terms of how many unit tests you can really write. So this is to help close the gap in terms of your test coverage and deliver quality code to the higher environments. This is not to say that, hey, we are going to make your developers lazy and let the AI handle everything for them. That's not the intent behind these agents.
Right.
But it also fixes our lazy developers, because let's be real, out there that aren't doing a lot of the unit testing. I'm not a developer, so I could say that, but,
Well,
Developers are creative.
Can the OPA policy block AI agents as well? Just like how you would normally be blocking like a human kind of thing too, right? So can this also do the same thing? So to kind of keep the agents in check as well, so they don't go off on a tangent doing whatever they need to do kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. The OPA we talked about is a layer that is a foundation layer to the entire platform, ideally here. But generally speaking, it should be the foundation layer. If I'm speaking agnostic to Harness, that layer should see AI versus non-AI as at the same level, like irrespective of whether you are leveraging an agent to deliver the work versus you are doing it as part of the traditional approaches of delivering that work through pipelines. That has to still be treated as the governance layer no matter what. So in our case, yes, the OPA, which is available in the platform, will be used as the policy gate or enforce any kind of checks and balances that is required, irrespective of whether this code is delivered by an AI agent. Not fully trusting your AI agent, you should always have those checks and balances consistently throughout the process.
Yeah.
Awesome. So it's going to govern both sides of it. So I was saying earlier is we can enforce developers to use the agent, but then on top of it, OPA is going to enforce both the human and the agent to do
correct.
The right, corporate
exactly.
policy. Right.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
So okay. Anything else you guys wanted to cover on this? I'd like to maybe even look at that catalog again real quick.
Yeah.
But anything else you guys wanted to cover on this?
I just want to mention one other thing. Like while we do offer marketplace agents, there is also the option to create their own agents. While we are adding more and more to the marketplace based on what we are seeing in the industry. Obviously, we cannot cover every creative idea that the customers might have. So, which is why we are opening the doors to have customers create their own agents by bringing their own LLMs and integrating with any MCP server they might have in their ecosystem. That's where the custom tab that Rudy is showing right now could be leveraged, where they could just go and create their own agents and automate their work.
So in other words, these are like first-party harness-provided agents, and then there could be a third-party custom ones that any vendor or potential customer kind of come in and develop their own for their use cases.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
perfect.
Rudy, can you click on one of those? I'm just curious to see what that. I think you did. One of the built-in.
Yeah, I can open up the code coverage agent. I'll also add as part of our announcement. Which
Right. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So this is what I was looking or kind of getting at or that's exactly where I was going. So you led me right to it, Kalyan. Thanks. So that's why I wanted to go back to the marketplace to see what you guys could customize. So and even on top of that, like we could take this and say, hey, I don't necessarily like what out of the box you guys decided, or I might want to add a little bit or take a little bit. So I could ultimately take this YAML file, create a new one, and then just edit it to our liking. Awesome. Okay. And that's what what Akash and I have been working on a lot as well, is just leveraging AI in our pipelines to do, again, we're heavy government focus, heavy federal focus. So, we have the RMF controls, we have the STIG automation. So what I see here, I mean, this is probably to what you were saying earlier, is like not necessarily making developers lazy, but things that they're just not going to, I wouldn't say not care about, but just not be focused on as pushing their code out. And again, we're rapidly pushing out code, faster than we can think of the stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to just layer these things in, say, hey, all right, by default, you're going to put your STIG worker agent in here, and it's going to go through and, try to look at documentation, try to look at your code, try to reach out, right? Like, yeah, I mean, so basically taking the basic app dev STIG requirements, build our own skill around that.
Yeah.
And that's probably a perfect use case for this.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Awesome.
And every agency has their own process of delivering software, and leverages worker agents based on your custom processes, your tasks, and then look at where you can automate and be more effective in delivering software into your production faster, especially when there is so much AI innovation happening. So leverage this as much as part of your SDLC, and also take your code into production faster.
Yeah, I mean documentation alone, right? Building our readings, I would always do that. I'd run through all my code, build everything out. Now, again, not developer, so I'm doing more infrastructure related things. So build out this long, huge, deployments, and then I'd always take that entire repo, feed it into our local LLMs or whatever, and then spit out, hey, what is my code doing, right? Develop the README for this so that I can add that to, because even if I wrote it myself, I'm going to miss something, I'm going to get it wrong, or what have you, where I can make this as part of a step in my pipeline that I'm going to check my code in, I'm going to review everything, I'm going to scan it, I'm going to deploy it to my cluster, and then at the end of this, I'm going to write the README for this that shows exactly where the life cycle of it.
Well, more to that also, how do you guys envision, because LLMs hallucinate a lot all the time, right? How do you guys propose that a developer or a human in the loop check on a lot of these automated pipelines that are there? So is there some way to kind of run it in a read-only mode, or like an advisory kind of only mode first before you start incorporating into a pipeline, or no?
Yeah, no, we can absolutely do that, and we can always put a human approval element in the middle. The code coverage that we just showcased just happened to be committing directly into the pipeline, but it absolutely could be gated as everything else. And I know that's very important, especially for our federal partners as we go through that. So I did want to just add one layer, Tim, to you, and obviously, Akash, you guys are great partners of Harness, as many others are as well. So in addition to the marketplace and the custom agents as part of our notification on this Tuesday, we're also going to have Harness certified. So these are partner built, but reviewed and certified by Harness Engineering and Security before they show up in the catalog. So partners can submit their own agents that can go into the marketplace. So think of it as like dependency vendors with their own scanning agents or cloud providers with agents specific to their platform. All of that, we're very excited about partnering with others. The third tier is actually going to be also community-based, where agents publish by the broader harness user base as well. So those are coming in as well. So that's where we can lean on organizational policy, and obviously you'd create your own. To that end, and you were talking about some of the hallucination, Akash, like how do we create that deterministic behavior? Kalyan and I were fortunate to be part of a team that worked together on this automated governance and remediation agent, which is something that was near and dear to our federal partners and our customers as we're going through this. So, and this is a little bit, just from what you saw, like the agent taking in this is sort of our version 1 as we put this together. It's been very powerful, but the pain point that we've been trying to solve is, especially for our federal customers or any heavily regulated organization, is that proving that your pipeline is compliant or mapped to the right controls or hasn't drifted from what was authorized, especially like an ATO. That's traditionally a very manual process, as those watching this can attest to. So anyone on the compliance team is going to be pulling a lot of logs, creating a lot of cross-referencing frameworks, and then writing a justification. And this can take weeks. I mean, we've seen this out there. And we wanted to build out an agent that can, do all of that pulling and mapping instead of a person. So rather than kind of walk you through, I wanted to show you what the output of that looks like. So this is a compliance posture assessment that our team has put together internally yet. It's not packaged yet, and it's not out in the marketplace. I just kind of want to level set those expectations, but we are working on, pushing that out there. This one reads the context and writes a report, and it's really closer to a retrieval augmented prompt than a worker agent. That said, that's this version, but it's, we're adding more to it. But it's very valuable in that we've had really good reception across a lot of different federal partners that we've shown this to. What it does is it creates that that immutable record of every time you're running a pipeline or as you choose to run those pipeline executions. We created this against 15 different total checks on structural assessments, and these control checklists are mapped to SOC 2, NIST 853, SALSA, DOD, CATO, PCI. And that's just this version, right? Obviously, you can get granular, add other compliance frameworks. And there's findings and recommendations for each of them as you go through each of these different checks and controls. That's the initial pass. The second pass is also the residual risk assessment. This is something the CRO and, of course, COs, especially in our DOW partners, really care about, because they want to know, okay, well, did you ship something? Is something now live from a mission system that might have a human in the middle that today has some kind of actual risk? Is that something that we need to be aware of and help remediate? Or is something, especially, in this, not just post-Mythos world, I mean, we've all been a part of this, right? I mean, AI, finding those zero-day vulnerabilities is nothing new. We've just accelerated that. So is there something that was approved last week, had 0 CVEs, but now this week no longer has 0 CVEs based upon the SALSA attestation and the SBOM? Like, did we find something that, like, oh man, we shipped this out, we were good last week, but now all of a sudden there's all these vulnerabilities, we got to handle that. And then in addition, to all of this residual risk category, we're also generating and implementing the OPA policies that would have prevented these from occurring. So it actually handles that for you, as well as giving proposed remediations, which we can then apply via our MCP server. So
so your agent is building OPA policies.
Correct. It's building OPA policies as well as has the capability to add them and implement them. Okay. We've chosen to add more humans in the middle and just have some more control from that gated network, and being able to also approve this via applying this via an MCP rather than making it just like a blind automated trust scenario. Nice. So yeah.
Gotcha. So this is an agent that this is a group of agents that you're running against any pipeline that gets ran. So you're getting, so so a developer, maybe they didn't put this stuff in there, right? And they just ran their pipeline. Their pipeline is going to trigger your pipeline to build this out.
Yes, it could.
So it can, yeah. So yes, it could be built in both ways, Tim. Either it could be made part and parcel of any pipeline, where you trigger the agent as part of the pipeline to generate this kind of report, or you can have this agnostic to any pipeline, where you run this by looking at the pipeline execution as a trigger. As you said, anytime any pipeline runs, you can use it as a trigger. And then once the pipeline execution is complete, you run this agent to generate the compliance report. So it could be done. The agents can be configured to run in any fashion you wish.
Gotcha. Because that was going to be my follow-up question is do I have to run all these as a pipeline? Maybe there's something in there that from a corporate wide, like, could you just have an agent always running and listening and on a schedule? I guess that's my answer, right? I could just build that all into a pipeline and schedule
Correct.
that pipeline, or
Yes.
do the trigger. So you're
Yeah.
getting the OPA side of it, but you don't have this agent just sitting here running all the time doing things.
Yeah.
You're still kicking it off. That's awesome. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. That's definitely something that you could certainly configure your agents against. But I just wanted to also note here that the cost of the agent also need to be kept into consideration, because as the agents are running, every agent is incurring some cost because it's leveraging AI behind the scenes. So as long as you have fine-tuned and optimized the agent to run with the minimal cost, the value it's going to provide is going to be much beyond the agent's cost itself. So absolutely, yes, you can do that.
Okay. And then how about from an auditing perspective? Like, is there, what do we, like, I have to, AI built this, right? I have an auditor comes back and says, hey, I want to look at the prompts and any of that. Like, what's getting logged here from that standpoint and seeing what actually ran?
Yeah, so our platform has a complete audit trail on all the executions, and we can take a look at specifically. So even our agents are Git based in the sense that there's different versions of them. You can set up different versions, and you know which version ran at which time against the execution. It's something that's very important as we talk about this, because for those that are familiar with Harness itself, is we've got like temporization capabilities and others, and ATOs are so important is what we're doing to accelerate those ATOs. We want to make sure that there's a very clear immutable trail back to your AO, so that they can go back and say, okay, when Rudy ran this pipeline and executed this application, which had this agent and then pushed or generated some code that went into a mission system, which versions were running, what does that look like? And we want to be able to do that so that in case that they're, we have to do any kind of remediation or do some kind of RCA, root cause analysis after the fact, just understanding where all of that is. So, and all of that can be, we export that out so we can stream that into your specific like log stream providers. At the end of the day, we want to make sure all those like controls are in place. And reality is, and I think you both said it, Tim and Akash, is like, look, I mean, oftentimes compliance is conflated with security. And we take that to a step above, which is that we're really looking at shifting that security left and providing that visibility and real security hardening, because these applications are, potentially touching, human lives that are, especially with our war fighters and those others who are, serving our country. So we want to make sure that we have an immutable trail, and that we're not just compliant for the sake of compliance, but we're actually providing that security hardening.
Awesome.
Yeah, and at the same time, all of this had to be also done with some best practices in terms of obviously with MCP servers, with LLMs, you can also write directly back into the other systems, but we do not know the auditing limitations for those systems. So that's why instead of directly writing into those systems, like even GitHub repositories or ServiceNow or any other systems that we are integrating throughout this process, it's important to follow some of the best practices. Instead of writing directly into a code base, use the practice of creating PRs so that You can keep the developers or the reviewers in the loop who can review the code and then decide whether to accept it or not. Those are some of the best practices that would still be applicable even though we are using AI. They can be extended to any code created by AI as well. So I would say just follow all the best practices that you had been following, and make sure any kind of code is not directly being written into any of those repositories without keeping the developers or the human in the loop.
Okay. Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, guys, this has been great. This is awesome. I mean, I can't wait to start getting in here and working and messing, building out some of these things. Anything else we want to cover from the agent side of things? I mean, I think that was pretty in depth on getting into there, showing us some things. Anything you guys want to touch on as well?
No, all I would say is wear your creative hat and identify the tasks that you had been painfully doing manually and automate them using Harness's worker agents.
Yeah, I can't wait to start contributing and hopefully we get our names up there. That Tim and Akash built this skill or this career. So
one day.
Awesome.
I love that.
Yeah. So where could folks go to learn more? Do you guys have? I mean, we could throw some links and whatnot. Is there full write ups on this? You guys have blogs? Any types of like videos and such? I'm sure there's plenty.
So we have. Go ahead, Rudy.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that since it was released yesterday, we just had a blog post and a press release from Harnesses itself. All the Harnesses public documentation has been updated with.
Because we used our agents to do all that, right?
Yes, yeah. And the Harness documentation also has an agent, an AI agent, that would allow you to quickly get your questions answered. So you don't have to really go dig into the documentation to figure out all the nuances in terms of how to create these agents. You can ask your questions using Harness's documentation agents as well, and get answers to everything in terms of how you can create them, configure them, and how you can execute them in the pipelines. All those things can be easily answered through Harness's documentation agent.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll be linking all those in the description of the video as well. So
yes,
easily accessible.
Yeah, and if I can just add one last thing, is just because this again comes up so much, is that if you're going to take away anything from this one conversation, because agents aren't a new thing, right? But the interesting, whether or not AI can write code or generate a report, right? That was never in question before, us having this conversation. It's whether or not you can do that inside the same governance your organization already trusts. And that's the whole design point behind the worker agents. And honestly, the whole reason Kalyan and I wanted to come on and talk through the guardrails instead of just like doing the demo is really just talking about like, how do we provide that fully documented, auditable, and policy-driven delivery platform that all of our federal customers need.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and you're making it first-class citizens. So, like, if someone isn't versed in skill building, isn't creative from that standpoint, they're not limited anymore, right? We can build those awesome things, put them in there, and anyone can consume them. And then it just gives you that blueprint and say, okay, I saw what Tim and Akash did. Let me tailor it to something I did, and I can go create a new one. So yeah, I think that's what you guys definitely are bringing to the forefront is using this more. How do you consume it? And you just made it insanely easy. So
yeah, I mean, even seeing what I just saw and what you guys showed, I already have some like ideas churning, like incorporating into some of your other modules, right? Potentially like with the cost explorer type stuff, maybe even the develop portal, incorporating some of that stuff in there. So yeah, I want to definitely mess around with some of that.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, I appreciate everything. I appreciate you guys running through all that.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks listeners. So definitely comment if you need to see anything else or you want to get more of a demo. I'm sure these guys would be happy to as long as we could be customers, right?
We'll have to get a follow up with for sure on some of the new other cool features that they keep pumping out.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks you
again, everyone.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Thank you, Akash.
DevSecOps. Tap into the news.